Well, a good morning to you and thank you for staying with Morning Prime. It's a bright Wednesday from wherever you're watching us from. Asante Sana. My name is Jesse Rogers, and it being a Wednesday, we take a look at the latest youth and political topics that we can canvass right here. And it has been touted as a make or break moment for political parties. That's the upcoming party nominations, which are set to be a high-stakes game, with political parties having the sole challenge of ensuring the process is free and fair. This will in turn help avoid a fallout amongst their ranks, especially after the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties came clear on the 10-day period given to individuals to run as independent candidates. We now evaluate the space for the youth in the monolithic coalitions or these parties as we seek to define if these party primaries can truly be free and fair. And equally, what's the space of these minority groups when I'm talking about the women, the youth, especially since we hear it time and time again, if you're not on the table, then you're part of the menu. And clearly, if history serves us correct, these party nominations are usually high stake. And we've had a couple of parties come clear that perhaps they will go through the direct nomination process using a scientific approach. That's for the ODM party. The UDA party on the other side mentioned they don't have any preferred candidates, no direct nominations. It will be Wanjiko who will decide. And interestingly, this time round, if you claim to be a party member and you're not on the party register, then you can count yourself unlucky. You might not be able to participate and vote in the party primary. So we'll try and take a look at this particular topic of discussion, even from a youthful point of view. And with me in studio, I have a youthful panel who will allow me to introduce them before we get to interrogate some of the talking points we will be canvassing today. Marvin Wamukata joins me in studio. Thank you so much for your time. Good morning.
Thank you, Jesse.
It's great to see you. You're a community youth mobilizer.
Yeah, true.
Yes.
And maybe in the course of the interview, I'll elaborate further into details on what we are doing at the community level.
Okay, well, definitely. And we might want to interrogate why the youth don't want to register as voters, you know. Perhaps you might have some insights towards that. I'm equally joined by Enoch Onkoba. Thank you so much for your time. Karibu.
Thank you, Jesse.
Well, it's great to have you with us. A youthful fella who's the secretary to the Nakuru County Budget and Economic Forum. Asante Sana for your time. We appreciate your presence right here. And equally, we're joined virtually via way of Zoom by Lydia Mathia, who's the founder of the Daughters of the Mountain. Asante Sana for your time, and thanks for helping us achieve gender parity. Karibu.
Thank you. I'm sure I'm here for more than that.
Okay, definitely. And we'll get to interrogate your thoughts on a couple of issues as well. Perhaps let's start with the party nominations that are slated to start as early as next month. And as we well know, on Koba, I'll begin with you. These party nominations are usually high stakes. We've seen the entrance of men in black at some point in one party. In other parties, we've heard of claims, especially in 2017 within Jubilee, of claims of certain individuals, you know, rigging out people. And one of the governors, is it the Laikipia governor, is testimony. He didn't pass in the party primaries, but went ahead and clinched the seat, is it as an independent candidate. So the question being, can these party nominations be free and fair? Do you believe that?
They can be free and fair.
Yeah.
Although free and fair is relative. Those who lose always say it is not free, not fair. Those who win say the end justifies the means. So free and fair is so relative, or quite relative, and depends on who is on the other side of the coin, or whose side is battered. But we are hoping that there will be some semblance of free and fairness, and free nomination this time round. You put it right that in 2017 Jubilee nominations were not as free as people may want to believe, or as people may want to see.
Yeah.
Ndaitu Muriithi is one of those who fell during the nominations and got elected. Muhammad Ali in Nyali was also in ODM. She lost, or he lost in ODM nominations, but went ahead to be elected as an independent candidate. There are many more. Go to Tarbo as an example, and many others. But I hope it taught the parties a lesson that in 2017 we had the highest number of independent candidates than we've ever had in both our parliaments.
Yeah.
And we're hoping that parties have learnt that people are now clever, and that the electorate knows that it's not necessarily the party that works for you, it is the person who you elect. The individual. And if you look at the most independent candidates, even their ranking in CDF, they are doing better than those who were elected on party euphoria.
Okay, well, that's interesting. Lydia Mathia, let's cross over to you, and perhaps happy belated International Women's Day. Well, what's the space for women in these parties, especially when it comes to a high-stakes game like the party nominations? We've had a couple of parties perhaps prefer the direct nomination route. Should we set aside a couple of seats in these parties in order to ensure we achieve the gender parity when it comes to that all-important rule? What's your take on that?
So first of all, there's a problem in our political parties of the culture. In political parties are not very encouraging to women. They conduct their business, they do their interactions, how they train their engage with the constituents, how they promote the party. All the practices within political parties need to be engineered so that it's easier for women to plug in. A lot of campaigns, even that are led by political parties, happen, with the rallies that are led by candidates, which are not very easy for women to engage in, especially young women. And I think one of the things that I'm very happy to see is that the Jubilee Party, for example, right now, is engaged in what they're calling activations, which they are doing through town halls. And it's very easy now for women and young women to be able to go into such meetings and be part of the process, because it's easy for women and young women to be in town halls than to go to rallies, as you would see, generally other parties, promoting their ideologies through those kinds of forums. And I think I've also seen other parties adopt that kind of a setup. That's a good format. But a lot of the cultural practice, how people conduct the business of political parties is done in a very male-dominated sense. A lot of discussions at night that are very hard for women to then, those the discussions about direct tickets, they happen in clubs at night, and it's very hard for women to then be part of those processes. And so what we would like to see is more transparency, more order and structure, so that if you're talking about truly giving direct tickets to men, then there are women who qualify, actually, because they are very, very strong. If I could just give an example, for example, in Homa Bay, there is Gladys Wanga who is running for governor. But you also have a very strong party official called Mbadi. And one of the greatest challenges, for example, for such a woman is to figure out how is she going to get the party ticket. If they go for direct nomination, how does the party, how fair would such a consideration be, given that one of her competitors is the deputy party leader of the party? And that's really a belief by people that, this lady, even if she works so hard, she is not going to get the ODM ticket. So I think some transparency around this process of direct ticketing, we don't mind it, so long as it is fair, impartial, and objective, because we know that women have the capacity and they're capable. So they need to not manipulate the processes to favor men. In any event, it is very important for parties to cross over the nomination period with lists that are at least compliant to the two-third gender rule. Otherwise, IBC will not accept those lists. So it is important for the parties then to consider how they're going to accommodate female candidates.
Well, that's definitely of key concern, and we'll be monitoring as the fourth estate, perhaps to push that message even further. So Marvin, all said and done, perhaps as you explain your work as a community youth mobilizer and the apathy, what explains this voter apathy, especially amongst the youth? What do you think is the best route when it comes to direct nominations, or it be, you know, party delegates actually voting in their preferred candidates to fly the party flag? Because on direct nominations, we've had something like scientific approach. And he mentioned that losers always cry foul. And will we be able to achieve that free and fair, perhaps?
We will, in a number of aspects that we may pursue. But again, I want to underline some aspects that make these nominations a do or die in some cases. We look at the nature of our political parties. For a very long time, we've had regional parties. So to some people, they believe once their political party is very strong in a certain region, it is an automatic win when the general election comes. Yeah. And again, underlying that fact, the party primaries, and as it has been stipulated in the amendments to the Political Act, that is where we are again seeing the direct and the indirect methods of doing the party primaries coming in. And I'm really looking forward to how the political parties will go and use the hybrid way of both the direct and the indirect party primaries method to make sure that they give the general population candidates who are of quality, and the candidates who will meet the Chapter 6 of the Constitution. We've also seen how these party primaries are being prepared. The political parties are preparing for them. Yeah. And this is the only way that will inform if this process will be credible or it will be fair. It is into the preparation of these party primaries. And when you look at how political parties are gearing up and preparing for the party primaries, there are certain underlying challenges that are not likely to be met in this particular session that we are heading into party primaries. Facts like we are talking of the costs of doing these party primaries. It is so expensive to an extent that the nomination fees that are being paid by candidates is not enough to be able to hold a direct party nomination as stipulated or as with the same qualities and the same standards as the general election, and how IBC does the same thing, because this is a replica of what the IBC will be doing in future. Also, we are looking at the capacity of individuals within these political parties to actually carry out a credible nomination. We've seen a trend where most political parties deviate from using professionals, and I want to take also this moment to call upon political parties to open their doors, incorporate professionals who will make sure that they do a proper job and a proper logistics in terms of running this nomination. Okay. And it is worrying when you see, in some cases, we are seeing a trend where most political parties are bringing on board politicians who some of them are already contesting in same seats that other individuals are also seeking to contest in the same. It is an unfair advantage when you look at it from that sense. So the credible nomination will only be attained if the preparation is gotten right, and the individuals and the capacity of the persons within the political parties are up to task and up to standard to carry out the nomination. Okay. And again, in line to the costs that that political parties undergo to make sure that they carry out these party primaries, it is very interesting that this costs, and in terms of what is expected from the members of the public, it is interesting that we also need to look and be creative in the way that we do our nominations in political parties to make sure that it meets the expectations of individuals in our No political parties, thank you.
Okay. So perhaps I was looking at one of the parties, the cost for MCA seats, male aspirants will pay a nomination fee of 50,000, while females 25,000. The same amount is to be paid by the youth. Is this too high of an amount perhaps, or is it fair from where you sit? Because you're talking about the costs.
When you look at it is fair to this extent.
Yeah.
I'm looking at the budget line items when it comes to a nomination exercise to a political party. We have the personnel. These are the people who will be there making sure that the votes are casted, the votes are counted, and the votes are tallied. And at the end of the day, there is also a logistical aspect when it comes to transporting these nomination materials.
Okay.
And when you look at how also our political parties are funded, you see some aspects of underfunding. Because when you go through the Political Parties Act, it stipulates the amount that should be given to political parties every year when the budget is being read, but that amount has never been attained. So with the underfunding, and I'm glad because the amendment to the political parties stipulates new methods of how parties can share the exchequer's money.
Okay.
And this is interesting and a challenge to political parties when you talk of even gender balance and ensuring that also young people are nominated and they are presented in an election, because it will also form a basis as to how political parties will be funded when it comes to...
Okay, that's interesting. So, Enoch, as I cross over to you, this is a high-stakes game, and there's so much suspicion, as you mentioned. And when you interact with some of these aspirants, some of these hopefuls, they're confounded with one big issue, and the office of the Registrar of Political Parties gave them a reprieve. At least you can be an independent candidate, and you're given a 10-day window period to at least shift from that party and vie as an independent candidate. But they're equally compounded with the question of go to this big monolithic parties and risk failing in the nomination process, or go for these small regional parties, easily get a direct ticket and let the voters decide. At least you made it to August 9th. Well, what's your take on that?
Jesse, politics is a game of numbers. You may as well go to these small political parties if you're sure that the numbers, pale kwa ground as they say, are with you. But if you believe that you are the most favorite candidate, you can join any party, you can go through any party's nomination, provided the party officials and the elections board in these parties hold free and fair nominations. There is no way about it. We must start insisting that these bad mannerisms of because some party leader somewhere has a sister or a girlfriend or a boyfriend somewhere, they'll give a ticket to them just because they want them in parliament. That is the way we are losing even in our legislative agenda in the National Assembly, because people go there with several interests, because politics is about interests, and that is why we always say that there is no enmity in politics. It's where your interests align. So if you find that somebody was elected because he was sponsored by some party leader somewhere, the party leader wants him to come to parliament or her to come to parliament and push the agenda, not your agenda. So we must, as the people, start insisting that these bad mannerisms that we see in political parties, the unfairness we see in political parties, the way they conduct nominations, it's as if they're just there. It's as if it's just an exercise that is there to save face for party, or just a formality. Party primaries should not be a formality in an election. And there's something Marvin talked about, the political parties fund. The way the political parties fund is distributed to political parties has been somewhat unfair, and the recent amendments tried to make it a bit fair. But I think we should also use this political parties fund to also put these parties in a catch-22 situation, as they say. Tell them if your primaries won't go well, then you don't qualify for the fund.
Okay, yeah.
Because why should we finance you to have your interest in Parliament? Because Parliament, especially the 12th Parliament, as we know, is captured. When do you ever see that Parliament full, except when they are pushing an agenda for the executive?
Okay.
You never find it.
Yeah,
it's because the people that we get through these party primaries are not necessarily the people that people want on the ground. And that is why we always cry foul. So we must insist as a people that we get party primaries because these parties are funded by our own funds.
Okay.
We must get them. We must get them to work the way they're supposed to.
We get it correct. So, Lydia, do you believe we can legislate sanity into this political party nominations? Because, I mean, it's commonly known that politics is a dirty game. And taking a look at the party nominations, this time round, if you're not on the party register, you will not be involved in the party nominations. And I mean, politicians at times, you hear of this story that I will go get 1,000 people, you know, and make them register in this party so they vote for me. And is this the safest way to ensure that we get proper representation? Because on the flip side, the youth who are aspiring to be, you know, representatives might not have the money advantage to mobilize and all that. What's your take on that?
You know, it's interesting, you know, the question you've asked, that can we legislate sanity into political parties? And the truth is, we can try, but it comes down to us as Kenyans and our party leaders and the human beings that we are. Because it seems in this country, when we pass laws, we then begin to look for ways to not obey those laws. You know, how do I become cleverer than this law? How do I make sure I use it to my personal advantage and not really follow the law as it is? So issues like what you said, being able to mobilize people from elsewhere to come and register so that they can manipulate the outcome of the elections. And let me tell you, even now, when you're saying that the party register is the one that will be used in the nominations, I can tell you there are people who will actively go register themselves in the wrong parties so that they can manipulate the candidates of the other political parties and get them weak candidates, right? Yeah. So that if you're from ODM and you have a problem with an ANC candidate, then when you go and register as ANC people, and then you go and make sure that the ANC candidate is voted is a weak person, you know, so that you have a favorable outcome, you know, that is something that favors you in terms of the competition. So we are a country that doesn't seem to be very keen, especially on the political arena, to follow the rules. We want to manipulate, and I think this is where things, people like the IEBC and the Office of the Registrar of Political Parties need to be very, very strong. They need to be very strong because they are the institutions that can safeguard the sanctity of these processes, like we are saying. All these things come down to the human beings that are given the responsibility to oversee and the responsibility to make sure that the laws are followed. So we are watching very closely to see if IBC will continue to be committed in the office, the Registrar of Political Parties. But the truth is that we as political parties have to make a decision, a deliberate decision to follow the rules. I remember when we did the National Alliance back in 2013, I think that was one of the most transparent nominations ever held in this country. But unfortunately, you know, we have degenerated after that. That even Jubilee in 2017, you know, was not very, you know, up to standard. And I believe that there's a place for political parties. If you see how political parties work in other countries such as South Africa, let's even say China, you know, these are political parties that are so strong, you know, even in Tanzania, they're able to really push policy, they're able to stand for something, and we can get there. But it's because of all these, what I'd call shenanigans in political parties, that keep occasioning this need for every single human being who wants to engage in politics to now register their own political party because they're afraid that if they join another political party, games are going to be played on them, and it's not going to be fair on them. And remember, it is the nomination process that sieves the candidates for the rest of us to vote for. So again, once the process of sieving is manipulated, it is all jumbled up, again, you don't get the right people out on the other side. So garbage in, garbage out, and then in the general election, you have very limited choices. And I think where we are right now, I'm kind of happy at a personal level that we are kind of gotten out of that place where very dominant. I think because of who they are, it's good that there is some room for people to come out here and we see them as they are, as opposed to being and ran over by political parties, because that will deny us a lot of good candidates for election.
Okay, speaking of shenanigans, I happen to have a copy of the Star right here from yesterday, and you happen to be from Nakuru. This Jubilee officials exchanging blows, you know, showing the high stakes game in party politics and party primaries and whatnot. You get to react to that. You also can, but as you do, let's speak to that same question. Can we legislate sanity into such parties, since it's definitely a game of high stakes? And in some coalitions as well, where there's deficit of trust, as we've had time and time again, can we use the laws to ensure that these principles, these partners in the coalition, that these party members will definitely be safe, home and dry when it comes to free and fair nominations?
I think the law, we've already legislated to an extent that if we follow the structures and the laws that we already have, we should be able to have people with high integrity and individuals who will be able to even run our party primaries, and leaders that are beyond any questions when they are presented to the public. Because when you look at the Constitution, you see Chapter 6 clearly outlines what are the checklist that you need to follow to know if a leader meets this. But we've also seen a trend where we are seeing individual political party trying to amend the Chapter 6 and calling parties and individuals who are keen on economy, and I don't know how we can quantify that and make sure that when we are doing our primaries, we know this person abhors corruption, or this person is keen on the economy of this country. But when you look at the vetting process that goes through an individual before you hold public office, there are certain criteria that the law has already given us in terms of have you been evading taxes, or did you at any particular point did you find a creative way to not to give to the government what is due to the government? And we're also talking of if you've been convicted in any corruption case, there are records that should prove that. But due to our nature of politics, we've seen some of these aspects being twisted to hearsay, being twisted to political gimmicks and propaganda. And to that extent, we lose it in the essence that, you know, if a corruption case, if you are convicted through the legal processes that we have, there is a clear document, and that means you will not get the clearance from, or your clearance from the DCI will indicate that you have a case, you have a pending case, you are convicted. So such things can be filtered out. And again, when you talk of the conduct of our political parties and how we are able to run a credible nomination, you know, the Act actually has legislated very well and told political parties what you ought to do for all these years that you are in office. And it tells you that you need to promote democratic activities, you need to do civic education, you need to promote activities that entice young people to join politics. But the trend, and as you said, the bad manners in our politics has made some political parties disappear on their members for all the 4 years, then appear towards the end of just close to the general election and try to do some, we normally call it to vipindi. So you see, that makes the people, and especially the young people, tend to shy away from our political parties. And maybe when you look at even how frequent people participate in our party primaries, it's because there is a room, and when people create a vacuum in the political space, that is where we make it difficult to have a meaningful engagement in our political parties, in our political space. And when we don't have meaningful engagement, it means even when we are going in our party primaries to nominate individuals, these are people that mostly the people don't even associate with them. They have just appeared when that party disappeared from them and appeared during the last minute. And I think we need to hold some parties with a higher scale than others, because when you look at where we operate as political parties, they are parties that are well funded, they receive a huge sum of money from government. So we need to call them and question them as we are heading towards the general election. To what extent have they contributed to ensure that they have done civic education to the people? How have they made sure that they have promoted democracy within our political space? So these are the questions that we really need to ask yourself. And when you even think of why is it that we are having less and less participation in our political parties, this is a question of a party that has capacity creates a vacuum. That is why in a day-to-day basis, I'm sure you will, if you check the registrars of the office of the registrar of political parties, the parties are almost nearing to 90 of them. You see, if a party disappears from a region, it creates a vacuum, and other people now feel, I need also to register a party because you are not seeing your presence here. So then, maybe in finishing, the worst case scenario is the Mount Kenya region. Sorry to mention this, but you will find practically all counties have their own political parties. These parties that are existing in that region, when you go to other regions of the country, you will not find them. So this, again, continue making our political parties regional based, unlike what it is stipulated in our constitution that they should operate in the entire country.
In the entire country. Allow us to take a short break. Just hold on to your thought, Eno. I know it's a burning issue. Even as you'll come back, we have to find out what's happening in Nakuru. Allow us to take a short break. We'll be back with plenty more of the deliberations centered on the youthful participation in our parties, even as we take a look at the timelines. The party primaries are fast approaching. Will it be free and fair? Fair, rather. We'll find out after the break.